Welcome back to our Big 50 List Countdown. I'm Anna Wells, the Executive Editor of Industrial Distribution. Today I'll be joined in the studio by ID's Managing Editor Mike Hockett, and we'll be walking you through the list of the top 50 industrial distributors based on the revenue for fiscal year 2018. After exploring companies 50 through 11 over the past few days, we're finally here to unveil the top 10. At number 10, we have Cleveland's Applied Industrial Technologies. Applied's 2018 was headlined by its landmark $784 million acquisition of Columbus, Ohio-based FCX Performance, a flow control products and services distributor that was number 30 on the previous year's Big 50 list, with $346 million in 2016 sales. Now Inc., which does business as Distribution Now, makes the list at number 9. The company was one of the hardest hit by the oil and gas downturn of 2016. Its annual sales went from $4.1 billion in 2014 to a low point of $2.1 billion in 2016. But the company has rebounded nicely with the market over the past 2 years and now re-enters our top 10 this year for the first time since 2014 with $3.13 billion in sales. At number 8 is Melville, New York's MSC, and Mike Hockett has a little more on this $3.2 billion company.
From 2013 to 2016, MSC Industrial Supply held steady in the low teens on our Big 50 list, but major growth and expansion over the past few years has moved it solidly into our top 10. Its $3.2 billion in 2018 sales jumped 11% from a year earlier, and just over 60% of MSC's 2018 sales came via e-commerce. Within the past 2 years, MSC has made 2 major acquisitions, adding Davenport, Iowa-based Deco Tool Supply in the summer of 2017, and then Franksville, Wisconsin-based All Integrated Solutions in the spring of 2018, with those moves adding more than $160 million in annual revenue and enabling the company to establish a platform in OEM fasteners and gain traction in the Class C VMI space. MSC Chief Executive Eric Gershwin said the company's 2019 Q3 was financially disappointing, saying, quote, "We have seen a step down in demand since April, while the pricing environment remains uncertain due to the overhang of tariffs and trade. In response to near-term trends, we have implemented a 3-part action plan to 1. Improve field sales execution and accelerate new account implementation, 2. Increase profitability of our supplier programs, and 3. Drive increased expense control and productivity," end quote. MSC's fiscal 2019 ended August 31st, and it reported its results just a couple days after our Big 50 filming.
At number 7 this year is Win Supply, a company that's climbed an impressive 7 spots on the Big 50 list over the past 3 years. Win Supply acquired 2 PVF products distributors between the end of 17 and the end of 18, and opened a new regional distribution center in Jacksonville, Florida this past January. The company announced in early October that it has created a new company, the Win Supply Acquisitions Group, to be led by President Monty Salzman. At 6 is MRC Global, a distributor that's endured the ups and downs of the oil and gas market to reach its highest spot on the Big 50 this decade. The company's new MRC Go online catalog for contract customers helped achieve more than $1 billion in total online sales last year, with e-commerce representing 22%. In the top 10, we're seeing a lot more of this heavy investment in e-commerce, as many of these larger companies battle pressures from non-traditional distributors with less cost-intensive business models. Scott Benfield from Benfield Consulting is here with us to talk a little more about how these variables are impacting the distributors on our list.
The software's been built out. It's up to wholesalers to adapt it to their business. But a lot of non-traditional players began to use that software to get into the market. Guys like Zorro Tool that Granger started in 2011. Other guys that you may not have heard of, but Sustainable Supply. They started out as a parts distributor in Wisconsin. They compete against distribution, but they don't really look like distributors. They have very few branches and they have few salespeople, but they have great sites, very easy to navigate, and they give you a great price. They give you the great price because they don't have all the infrastructure that a full-service wholesaler. So they won't take all the business of a full-service wholesaler because they don't have as many products or same breadth of products. But what they do have is really easy to navigate online model. They can get you stuff very quickly. They get it to you at a great price. So what you're going to see is traditional wholesalers is going to get squeezed by these guys. There's parts of their market over here that's going to get shaved off, parts over here are going to get shaved off, and that's going to start to happen. A lot of these different models are getting in business, and the latest research says, hey, they got almost half of all the B2B sales out there. New models made within the last 10 years. Now, that's the research it's a couple years old. It probably needs to be redone. But, there's a lot of new models that you find that, 10, 12 years old that started up, and they're just now getting going. And they've already got close to half of all B2B sales. And, wholesalers need to worry about that. That's they all worry about other wholesalers that have e-commerce, and that's fine. There's your competitors, but it's these new businesses that come into the market that can do a lot of harm.
Thank you, Scott. That's a lot to think about. Moving on to number 5, we have Fastenal at $4.97 billion in 2018 sales, a jump of 13.2%. The company closed 157 branches in 2018, but through adding 336 on-site locations and more than 22,000 vending devices, Fastenal's in-market locations actually increased by 133. So far in 2019, the company hit milestones of 100,000 active devices in the spring and its 1,000th on-site location during the summer. Our number 4 company has had quite an interesting go these past few years. Here's Mike Hockett with more on Motion Industries.
Technically, Motion Industries' 2018 sales hit $6.3 billion, which would place it at number 2 on our list, but that figure accounts for sales from electrical and industrial distributor EIS, which was merged into Motion during 2018 and then divested this past summer. EIS had 2017 sales of more than $700 million, and since our list accounts for companies' ongoing operations, Motion repeats its 2018 ranking at number 4 with $5.5 billion in 2018 sales from ongoing business. That ranking is still significantly higher than the 8 to 10 range the company hovered around from 2013 to 2016. Motion Industries has had an eventful past couple of years. It acquired Santa Rosa MRO in the spring of 2018 and opened a new distribution center in Auburn, Washington shortly after. That following fall, Motion acquired Sunrise, Florida-based hydraulic supply company, which alone added $85 million in sales and 30 locations. Sadly, in the summer of 2018, Motion Industries endured the sudden passing of its president and CEO, Tim Breen, whose roots with the company went back to 1982. Less than a year earlier, Breen gave me a sit-down interview at the company's Birmingham, Alabama headquarters and led me on a tour of the company's distribution center there. His passing was a major loss for not only the Motion Industries family, but the industrial supply community as a whole. Motion appointed company veteran Randy Bro as its president in December of last year. Since then, it acquired automation and robotics company Axis New England and Axis New York this past March, acquired the remaining 2/3 of Sydney, Australia-based distributor Inenco as of July, and completed the aforementioned sale of EIS this past August.
Our number 3 company is Radnor, Pennsylvania's Airgas. During 2018, Airgas made its 500th acquisition in its then 36-year company history, adding Weiler Welding as the milestone expansion. Earlier this year, Airgas acquired Tech Air, which has annual sales of about $190 million and 550 employees across 50 locations. And in its highest ranking yet, at number 2, we have HD Supply, a distributor that has been subject of some major industry headlines as of late. Mike Hockett has more.
HD Supply is responsible for arguably the biggest company news among all distributors in 2019. In September, the company announced that it is splitting into 2 independent and essentially equal-sized companies, one each for its facilities maintenance and construction and industrial units, with each totaling approximately $3 billion in 2018 sales. To be completed by the middle of the company's fiscal 2020, HD's facilities maintenance unit will retain the HD Supply name. So if HD Supply's facilities maintenance business repeats its 2018 sales figure this year or close to it, it'll probably place around number 8 to 11 on next year's Big 50. But since the separation won't occur until next year, this year's Big 50 still accounts for the company as is. During 2018, HD completed its $380 million acquisition of construction supplies distributor A.H. Harris and opened a new 8-story, 222,000 square foot headquarters and leadership development center in Atlanta, about a half mile from HD's previous headquarters there. And this past September, HD acquired Houston-based Presto Maintenance Supply.
And now, the #1 company on this year's ID Big 50 list, by a wide margin indeed, is Granger, with $11.2 billion in revenue. 2018 sales increased a healthy 7.5% from $10.4 billion, which was enough to get this Illinois-based MRO distributor to #1 last year. Granger has been offering e-commerce in at least some capacity since 1996, and the company said it currently gets 69% of its total orders from digital channels as of July, a truly impressive percentage of overall sales. Granger, which was number 282 on the 2019 Fortune 500, has approximately 3 million active customers. We want to thank our industry experts for their commentary, Jack Hugh and Scott Benfield, as well as our sponsors and, of course, the industrial distribution readers, whose year-over-year loyalty and support continues to make the Big 50 list possible.
Congratulations to all the Big 50 companies we've highlighted this year. If you think your company should be considered for next year, send us an email and we'll add you to our contact pool.
You can also look for ID's print edition mailing in November and featuring the Big 50. Further, you can find us on the web at inddist.com. I'm Anna Wells, and thanks for joining us.